with regard to the environment.
Okay.
Now, you just tell
Do you want me to tell you what the two biggest Supreme Court cases are of the last few years?
This is what I want you
Michigan
to tell
versus
me.
EPA.
Whoa.
West Virginia versus EPA.
You know, you're here because you need money from us. So halt for the second and wait for the questions and answer the questions.
Well, I answered your question,
No, you
and
didn't.
you didn't like my answer because you,
did
don't
not
know what
answer the
Loper-Bright is,
question.
because you don't know what the major policies doctrine is,
Chairman,
because you're asking me, you're asking me about Section 202 of the Clean Air Act, and you don't read it. You don't know what it says.
Listen, and what you want to do is to deny. You want
No,
to.
I actually read the law. I do my homework.
Really?
You're just somebody who likes to have the microphone on. You know what I have to do? I read the law.
You know,
I read the
Chairman, I
Supreme
don't have
Court
to listen
cases.
to this, and I would say
No,
that,
what you should do for your constituents is actually read statute.
The budget is at real risk.
Read
Let
your
me tell
Supreme
you,
Court.
This is the Appropriations Committee.
Oh,
you come here.
you care
and
about
you
science?
tell us,
Now you're threatening to defund it?
Oh my God! No, you don't fund
Because
science.
you don't know what Loper-Bright
You are
is.
climate
Because you don't know what the
deniers.
major policies
You are
doctrine is.
climate
Your message
deniers.
to our folks at the EPA is that you want to
I don't
defund
have
us.
to listen to this BS.
The BS. You think I made up these cases?
Yeah, I think you have made up a whole lot of
I made
BS.
up Loper-Bright. I made up West Virginia versus EPA.
Before we begin, smash that like button and subscribe to Capital Truthline, because the mainstream media is never going to show you this hearing honestly. Rosa DeLauro tried to corner Lee Zeldin on climate policy. Instead, she walked straight into one of the most embarrassing congressional exchanges we've seen all year. And once Zeldin started bringing up actual Supreme Court rulings and legal facts, the entire narrative collapsed in real time.
Change is flooding our streets, poisoning our air, driving up healthcare and disaster costs. How can the EPA justify abandoning that duty to protect Americans to appease polluters under the false flag of economic growth?
Following the law, Section 202 of the Clean Air Act, where does it say anything about fighting global climate change? Loper-Bright, Supreme Court case. You familiar with it?
No, maybe others are. I'm not, but let me ask.
But that's really important. As a member of Congress, Loper-Bright says that we as an agency don't have the authority to get creative. If Section 202 of the Clean Air Act...
No, but you don't have, excuse me, you do not have the right to say climate change does not exist, that it's a hoax, and that's where this administration is coming from.
I understand you're upset that you don't know what Loper-Bright is. Do you know what the major policies doctrine is?
I'm upset because...
Do you know what the major policies doctrine is?
You know what, let me just
You're a
say
member
this
of
to you.
Congress. You should know.
Well, you have moved from someone who defended the environment to all of a sudden...
Being very defensive about not knowing the two biggest landmark Supreme Court cases of the last year with regards to your question.
You are very defensive about changing your policy and your positions with regard to the environment.
Okay.
Now, you just tell
Do you want me to tell you what the two biggest Supreme Court cases are of the last few years?
This is what I want you
Michigan
to tell
versus
me.
EPA.
Whoa.
West Virginia versus EPA.
You know, you're here because you need money from us. So halt for the second and wait for the questions and answer the questions.
Well, I answered your question,
No, you
and you didn't like my answer because
did
you
not
don't know what
answer the
Loper-Bright is,
question.
because you don't know what the major policies doctrine is,
Chairman,
because you're asking me about Section 202 of the Clean Air Act, and you don't read it. You don't know what it says.
Listen, and what you want to do is to deny. You want
No,
to.
I actually read the law. I do my homework.
Really?
You're just somebody who likes to have the microphone on. You know what I have to do? I read the law.
No,
I
Mr.
read the
Chairman,
Supreme Court
I don't have to listen
cases.
to this, and I would say
No,
that,
what you should do for your constituents is actually read statute.
The budget is at real risk.
Read
Let
your
me tell
Supreme
you,
Court.
This is the Appropriations Committee.
Oh,
you come here.
You care
and
about
you
science?
tell us,
Now you're threatening to defund it?
Oh my God! No, you don't fund
Because
science.
you don't know what Loper-Bright
You are
is.
climate
Because you don't know what the
deniers.
major policies
You are
doctrine is.
climate
Your message
deniers.
to our folks at the EPA is that you want to
I don't
defund
have
us.
to listen to this BS.
The BS. You think I made up these cases?
Yeah, I think you have made up a whole
I
lot of
made
BS.
up Loper-Bright. I made up West Virginia versus EPA. I made up Michigan versus EPA.
If you ask a question, you have to give the witness an
I
opportunity
do not have
to
to
respond.
have the witness attack me. Not when he's
You
here
have
as
to
a
give the
supplicant
witness a
for
chance
federal
to
resources.
answer the question.
I've asked a question I don't have an answer.
Oh, so you want me to start over with the last question? What's your question? Do you have a new one?
My question to you is, given the way you have dealt with the budget, it is a sop to polluters. You are really, it would appear, I just said what the president claimed in Mar-a-Lago is, you give me $1 billion and I'll make sure that you are made rich. I didn't say that. Your boss, the President of the United States, was clear on that. And that's what this is. That's what is going on here.
Okay.
So you don't have an answer.
No. Let me answer. Oh, please, let me answer your question. Can I answer? Yes. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Chairman. So it's interesting. You're saying that we're letting polluters off the hook.
Yeah.
Is that your position? Yeah, okay. So since January 20th, in the first year of the Trump administration, we sentenced more criminal defendants, 100 compared to the 91 of the last year of the Biden administration.
Oh, God,
we obtained far more in criminal fees and restitution. In the last year of the Biden administration, the number is 57.7 million. In the first year of the Trump administration, it's 561.9 million. We also have obtained far more in criminal forfeiture. So in the last year of the Biden administration, they obtained, get this, $0.1 million. $0.1 million. You know how much we did?
Oh, tell us.
$1.1 billion.
Tell us. How many of those projects did Biden start for you? Okay. Look, I don't go back to Biden. I'm going forward.
Pounds of illegal pesticides. No, you're actually making an accusation that we're letting the polluters off the hook. Pounds of illegal pesticides blocked from entering the U.S. 1.65 million pounds. Previously it was 0.96 million pounds. This is another one. Cleanup of contaminated soil and water in the last year of the Biden administration, 1.99 million cubic yards. In the first year of the Trump administration, 59.3 million cubic yards. More value of injunctive relief, 6.02 billion. More civil enforcement case conclusions.
Okay.
You want to make the claim that we're just giving up on the work of the Enforcement and Compliance Office.
Glyphosate.
Is that your question? I'd say don't. If your cup was filled with glyphosate, I'm telling you, as the administrator of EPA, don't drink it.
Thank you so much for agreeing to what we need to do.
I don't know what the question was. You're holding up a cup saying glyphosate.
You know.
Don't drink it. Don't inject it.
Maybe you should try doing that. Okay? Excuse me. Okay, I'm going to move on to a second question, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, I hope it's not as long as the first one.
Well, it wouldn't have been prolonged, except that, you know, it's interesting.
Yeah, we come with facts. We have answers.
Go ahead.
This wasn't just a heated political exchange. This was a complete collapse of credibility on live television. Rosa DeLauro came into this hearing ready to accuse the Trump EPA of abandoning environmental protections and appeasing polluters. But Lee Zeldin immediately flipped the entire conversation. Instead of responding emotionally, he started talking law, actual Supreme Court rulings, actual constitutional limits on federal agencies. And that's when things completely unraveled. The key moment came when Zeldin referenced major Supreme Court decisions that dramatically limited the ability of federal agencies to create sweeping regulations without clear congressional authorization. Cases like West Virginia versus EPA, Michigan versus EPA, and especially Loper-Bright, one of the biggest administrative law decisions in years. DeLauro clearly was not expecting the conversation to go there. Because the second Zeldin started discussing the legal framework, the hearing shifted from emotional political rhetoric into a debate about whether unelected federal agencies can simply invent powers Congress never explicitly gave them. That is the core issue here. And millions of Americans increasingly agree with the Supreme Court's position. Federal agencies are not supposed to function like mini legislatures. Congress writes laws. Agencies enforce them. That separation matters. But instead of debating the legal arguments directly, the hearing spiraled into interruptions, accusations, and personal frustration. And honestly, that's what made this clip explode online. Because
then came the environmental enforcement numbers, and this is where Zeldin completely changed the tone of the hearing. He pushed back hard against accusations that the EPA was letting polluters off the hook. According to the figures he cited, enforcement actions, criminal penalties, forfeitures, and environmental cleanup efforts had actually increased dramatically. That directly contradicted the narrative Democrats were trying to push during the hearing, and you could visibly see the frustration building. But what really resonated with viewers was something deeper than policy. It was the growing divide between emotional politics and institutional accountability. A lot of Americans are exhausted by political fear campaigns. They want practical solutions, they want competent governance, and they want federal agencies operating within the law instead of stretching vague statutes into massive regulatory power grabs. That's why debates over climate policy have become so politically explosive. Because for many Americans, this is no longer just about the environment. It's about government authority itself. How much power should unelected bureaucracies have? Can agencies reinterpret decades-old laws however they want? And who actually gets to make national policy? Elected lawmakers or administrative agencies? Those questions are now at the center of American politics, and this hearing exposed that conflict in brutal detail. Now, to be fair, climate concerns are real public concerns for many Americans. Flooding, infrastructure strain, pollution, and environmental protection are legitimate issues people care deeply about. But critics argue that fear-driven messaging and endless regulatory expansion are not automatically the answer, especially when regulations impact energy costs, manufacturing, transportation, housing, and the overall economy. That tension is exactly what exploded during this exchange. One side arguing urgency, the other arguing constitutional limits and legal authority. And Lee Zeldin clearly came prepared for the fight. By the end of the hearing, the emotional attacks simply were not landing anymore because the conversation had shifted toward facts, legal precedent, and measurable enforcement results. That's why this moment went viral. Not because it was loud, but because viewers saw one side speaking emotionally, while the other side kept returning to statutes, court rulings, and actual numbers. And in politics, that